The Galactic Outreach Academy was a place of many sounds. The low hum of the power systems, the soft hiss of doors opening and closing, the quiet chatter of 100 different species all talking at once. In a vast room that looked like a giant theater, a young man named Jin stood waiting. He was from Earth, a planet that was new to this galactic community. Next to him stood his friend, a young woman named Mira. She gave him a small, confident smile. He tried to smile back, but he felt nervous. All around them were the other cadets. There was a tall being with shiny green skin that looked like insect shell. There was a floating, jelly-like creature that pulsed with a soft blue light. There was a stout furry being with 4 arms. Jin represented all of humanity here. It was a heavy feeling. The doors at the front of the room opened with a sharp sound. Everyone became quiet. Their instructor, Captain Raz, walked in. He was from a species called the Cathar. He was tall and covered in dark green scales. His eyes were yellow with black slits in the middle, like a lizard's. A long, powerful tail moved slowly behind him. He looked at all the cadets and his gaze felt like it could cut through metal. "Cadets," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You have spent cycles learning our laws, our histories, our technologies. You have trained your bodies and, for most of you, your minds. But today is your final test. Today you face the empathy gauntlet." He pressed a button on a device in his hand. A large circular section of the floor in the center of the room lit up with a blue energy field. It shimmered like a wall of water. "The empathy gauntlet is not a test of strength or speed," Captain Raz continued, pacing slowly in front of them. "It is a test of character. You will face a creature known as the Xylosian beast. It is an empath. This means it can feel what you feel. It can see into your mind, into your soul." A few of the cadets shifted nervously. Jin felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "The beast," Raz said, "is a mirror. It will show you who you are. If you approach it with anger in your heart, it will show you anger. If you approach it with fear, it will show you fear. Its rejection is not just a sound. It is a physical force, a mental shock. Many strong cadets have been knocked out by it. Some have had their minds damaged for weeks. They see nightmares. They cannot think clearly." He stopped his pacing and looked directly at the cadets. "You will go one by one. You will stand before the containment field. The beast will be released. You will make contact. There is no way to prepare. There is no trick. You must simply be." He looked at a cadet with long, thin limbs and large eyes. "Cadet Lauren, you are first." The cadet, Lauren, stepped forward. Its large eyes were wide with fear. It walked slowly to the edge of the blue energy field. Captain Raz pressed another button. The energy field vanished. For a moment there was nothing in the circle. Then from a hidden door a creature walked out. It was magnificent. It was larger than a big dog with powerful shoulders and legs. Its fur was not like animal fur. It was made of what looked like thousands of tiny, clear crystals that caught the light and threw little rainbows on the floor. Its eyes were a deep, solid gold, and they held an intelligence that was ancient and sharp. The Xylosian beast looked at Cadet Lauren. It sniffed the air. Lauren was trembling. The beast opened its mouth. It did not make a loud sound. Instead, a low psychic growl vibrated through the room. It was not heard with the ears, but felt in the bones and the mind. It was a feeling of pure, unfiltered threat. Lauren let out a small cry and stumbled backward, falling onto the floor. The energy field snapped back on. The beast turned and walked back through its door. 2 medics hurried over to help the dazed cadet. Captain Raz made a mark on his datapad. His face showed no emotion. "Cadet Plix, you are next." The jelly-like creature Plix floated forward. It stopped at the energy field. The field dropped. The beast emerged again. It looked at the floating, pulsing form of Plix. This time the growl was different. It was a high, sharp, shattering feeling, like glass breaking inside your head. The Plorvian cadet shuddered violently, its blue light flickering fast like a panicked heartbeat, and it quickly floated away, defeated. One by one, the cadets stepped forward. A proud, insect-like Tarkellan stood firm, but the beast's answering roar was a wave of such intense, territorial fury that the Tarkellan was physically pushed back 2 steps, its pride broken. A furry, 4-armed cadet tried to project calm, but the beast sensed the anxiety underneath and responded with a snarl of impatience that made the cadet cover its face. Jin watched, his hands clenched at his sides. He saw his friend Mira watching too, her face serious. She was always so brave. He wondered what he would feel. Would he be angry? Would he be scared? He did not know. He only knew that he had to try. Finally, it was Mira's turn. She took a deep breath, stood up straight, and walked to the field. She looked determined. The field dropped. The beast came out and looked at her. Mira held its gaze. Jin could see her hands were in tight fists. The beast's head lowered. A deep rumbling growl started in its chest, a sound that promised a fight if she took one more step. It was a wall of defiance. Mira held for a long moment, but then the mental pressure became too much. She winced and took a single step backward. The field came back on. She had not passed, but she had not been broken. She walked back to her place, her shoulders slumped in disappointment. Captain Raz looked at his list. There was only one name left. He looked up, his yellow eyes finding Jin. Cadet Jin, he said, his voice flat. You are the last. The sound of his name felt like a physical blow. Jin's heart, which had been a frantic drum against his ribs, seemed to stop for a moment. All the air left his lungs. He was the last. There was no one else to watch, no more time to prepare. Every eye in the vast amphitheater was now fixed on him. He could feel the weight of their stares, a mixture of pity, curiosity, and from some, a sense of grim expectation. They were waiting for the human to fail. He saw Mira look at him. Her face was pale from her own failure, but her eyes were focused on him. She gave him the smallest nod. It was not a nod of confidence, but one of shared feeling. It said, I know. It is hard. He tried to draw strength from it. His legs felt heavy as if they were filled with lead. He willed them to move, one step then another. The walk from the group of cadets to the shimmering blue energy field felt like the longest walk of his life. The floor was cool beneath his boots. The room was utterly silent. He could hear the soft sound of his own uniform rustling as he walked. He stopped at the edge of the circle. He was now standing where all the others had stood. He looked at Captain Raz. The scaled instructor's face was unreadable. He held the control device, his thumb resting on the button that would drop the field. He gave Jin a slow, deliberate blink, his inner eyelid sliding sideways for a moment. It was the only signal he would get. Jin turned to face the empty circle. He took a deep, shaky breath. He tried to empty his mind, to project calm as some of the other cadets had tried, but his mind was a storm of fear and thought. He thought of Earth, of his home. He thought about how new humanity was to all of this. He thought about the whispers he had heard since he arrived at the academy. Words like primitive and violent. They thought humans were brutes, creatures of war who had somehow stumbled into the stars. What if they were right? What if the beast saw that violence inside him? Captain Raz pressed the button. The low hum of the energy field vanished. The silence that rushed in to take its place was even heavier. The hidden door slid open. The Zalosian beast padded out. It was even more impressive up close. The crystalline fur was not stiff, but moved with a soft, chiming sound like distant wind chimes. Its muscles shifted with a fluid, powerful grace under the shimmering coat. Its golden eyes, deep and liquid, swept the room and then locked onto him. Jin braced himself. He expected to feel its mind. He had heard the other cadets describe it later. The Tarkellan had said it was like a furnace of hate. The Plorvian had described it as a scream of pure noise. Mira had said it was like a solid wall pushing her back, but Jin felt nothing. There was no anger. There was no fear. There was no telepathic presence at all. It was like standing in a silent, empty room. He looked into the beast's golden eyes, and he saw only himself reflected in them. There was no storm of alien thought, no invasion of his mind. There was just silence. The beast took a slow step forward. Its head with its long snout tilted slightly. It sniffed the air. Its nostrils flared. It was studying him. It seemed curious. This was not what had happened with the others. They had all been met with an immediate reaction, a growl, a snarl, a psychic shout. But for Jin, there was only quiet observation. The beast took another step, coming to a stop in the very center of the circle. It was now only a few meters away from him. Jin stood perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever this was. He did not feel threatened. He felt seen, in a way the others had not been. The silence in the amphitheater was now a tense, living thing. Someone coughed, and the sound was shockingly loud. Jin could see from the corner of his eye that Captain Raz had taken a half-step forward, his datapad forgotten in his hand. The instructor's head was cocked, his scales slightly raised in what Jin had learned was an expression of deep confusion. The Zalosian beast made a soft sound. It was not a growl. It was a low chuff, a puff of air. Then it did something completely unexpected. It lowered its great head. It did not lower it in a threat to look at him from under its brow. It bowed. It bent its powerful neck and brought its head down, its muzzle pointing at the floor. The crystalline fur on its neck brushed the clean, polished surface. It was a gesture of submission, a gesture of respect. A wave of shocked whispers swept through the cadets. Jin heard gasps. He saw Mira's hand fly to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Jin's mind was blank. What was he supposed to do? The instructions had been to stand and make contact. No one had said what to do if the beast bowed. He was frozen for a second, his training failing him. Then an old deep instinct took over. It was an instinct from his own world, from a time before starships. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, of returned respect. Slowly, carefully, Jin bowed his own head. It was not a deep bow, but a simple, sincere nod. He held it for a moment, then lifted his eyes to meet the beast's once more. The Xylosian beast lifted its head. Its golden eyes seemed to hold a new light, a sense of understanding. It looked at Jin for one more long, quiet moment. Then it turned, its crystal fur chiming softly, and walked back through its hidden door. The door slid shut behind it. The blue energy field snapped back into place with a sharp buzz. The spell was broken. The amphitheater erupted into sound. Cadets were talking all at once, their voices a confused babble of different languages. Captain Raz stood motionless, staring at the now empty circle. He then looked at Jin. His yellow eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in intense, burning curiosity. Jin just stood there, his legs feeling weak. He had not been knocked down.
He had not been hurt.
But he felt utterly drained. He had passed, but he had no idea how or why. He had done nothing. He had simply stood there, a silent human in a room full of noisy minds, and for reasons he could not understand, the most feared creature in the academy had bowed to him. The walk back to the group of cadets was even stranger than the walk to the circle. The noise of the room washed over Jin, but he felt separate from it as if he were inside a bubble. The other cadets did not move aside for him. They just stared. Their looks were no longer of pity but of pure confusion. He saw the Tarkellen, its insect-like face unreadable, but its posture was stiff with disbelief. The floating Plorvian pulsed with a slow, confused yellow light. He reached his spot next to Mira. She was staring at him, her mouth still slightly open. "Jin," she whispered, her voice tight. "What did you do?" He could only shake his head. "Nothing," he said, and his own voice sounded hoarse. "I did nothing. I felt nothing." Captain Raz's voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. Silence. The room went quiet again, but the tension remained, thick and heavy. All eyes turned to the instructor. Raz was no longer looking at his datapad. He was staring directly at Jin. He began to walk slowly towards the group of cadets, his tail making a soft, sweeping sound on the polished floor. He stopped in front of Jin. His large, scaled frame blocked out the light. Jin had to look up to meet his yellow gaze. "Cadet Jin," Raz said, his voice a low rumble. "Explain what happened." Jin's throat felt dry. "Sir, I cannot explain it." "You must have done something," Raz insisted. "A technique. A mental state. The Xylosian beast is a telepathic mirror. It reflects what it sees. It has never bowed to anyone. Not in the entire history of this academy. It growled at a Galactic Council ambassador. It roared at a supreme commander. It has always met force with greater force. So what did you project? What did it see in you?" "I don't know, sir," Jin said, his voice trembling slightly. He tried to find the words. "The others? They said they felt its mind. A wall, a scream, a furnace. I felt nothing. It was like standing in an empty room. There was no one there." Raz's eyes narrowed. "Nothing? That is impossible. All living minds have a presence. A signature. Fear, anger, courage, pride. Even a sleeping mind has a whisper. You are telling me you presented it with a void?" Jin just nodded, helpless. He had no other answer. The captain stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment. The silence in the room was absolute. Finally, Raz turned away from Jin and addressed the whole group. "The trial is concluded. All of you, with the exception of Cadet Jin, have failed. You will report to the medical bay for a post-empathic scan. Then you will return to your quarters. Cadet Jin, you will come with me." A new wave of whispers started, but a sharp look from Raz silenced them. The other cadets began to file out of the amphitheater, many of them casting long, backward glances at Jin. Mira gave him a worried look before she turned to leave. Jin was now alone with Captain Raz. The large Cathar gestured for Jin to follow him. They did not leave through the main doors. Instead, Raz led him to a small side door Jin had never noticed before. It led into a stark gray office. The room had no decorations. There was only a large desk, a few chairs, and a view screen showing a star field. "Sit," Raz said, pointing to a chair. Jin sat. The chair was designed for many species, but it still felt cold and foreign. Raz sat behind the desk. He leaned forward, his elbows on the smooth surface, his claws tapping lightly. "We must understand this, Cadet. For the safety of this program and for your own safety. A void is not a known psychic state. It is an absence. It is what we find in rocks. In machines. Are you telling me your mind is like a rock?" "No, sir," Jin said. He felt a spark of frustration. I feel. I was terrified in there, but I could not project it. I could not." "Send it, Project," Raz said, his head tilting. "Cadet, you do not project your feelings to the beast. It senses them. It reads them. It is like a leaf feeling the wind. The wind does not try to blow on the leaf. It simply does." Jin looked at his hands. He tried to find a way to explain the unexplainable. "Sir, on my world, humans, we are alone in our minds." Raz was silent, waiting for him to continue. "We can communicate with words, with gestures, with looks. But I cannot know what Mira is thinking unless she tells me. I cannot feel her fear or her happiness unless she shows it on her face or in her voice. Our thoughts are private. They are always private. We are born alone in our minds, and we die alone in them." Captain Raz leaned back in his chair. For the first time, Jin saw a flicker of understanding on the reptilian face. "You are saying," Raz said slowly, "that your species has no telepathic capacity whatsoever, not even a latent receptive one?" Jin nodded. "Yes, sir." "We are closed. To us, it is normal. It is all we have ever known." Raz was quiet for a long time. He looked at the star field on the view screen. The beast did not meet a wall. He murmured more to himself than to Jin. It did not meet a calm mind or a brave mind. It tried to read you, and it found nothing to read. It reached for the wind and found no air. He looked back at Jin, his gaze intense. It found a solitude so profound, so absolute, that it exists outside its entire understanding of life. All it has ever known are noisy, open minds shouting their feelings. "You were silence." He stood up from his desk. "Come with me, Cadet. There is one way to be sure." Jin followed Captain Raz through the quiet, brightly lit halls of the academy. They did not see any other cadets. They must have all been in the medical bay. Jin's mind was racing. He felt a mix of relief and a new, deeper fear. The captain seemed to understand, but what did that mean for him? Would they send him home? Was his mind broken in a way no one could see? They entered the medical bay. It was a large white room filled with strange-looking machines. A doctor, a slender being with too many fingers, was checking the floating Plorvian cadet. The Plorvian was now pulsing a calm, steady green. In another corner, Mira was sitting on a medical bed, a small device held to her temple. She looked up as Jin and Captain Raz walked in. Her eyes were full of questions. Raz ignored everyone and walked straight to the head doctor, a tall bird-like creature named Physician Cadet. "Cadet," Raz said, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the machines. "I need a full empathic baseline scan immediately on Cadet Jin." The physician turned its head, its large black eyes blinking. "The human? His file states he is a non-empath. A 0 on the scale. There is nothing to scan." "I am aware of his file," Raz said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Scan him anyway. I want a deep-level reading. I want to see the silence." Physician Cadet gave a soft, chirping sound of confusion, but nodded. It gestured for Jin to follow it to a different part of the room. There was a large, ring-shaped machine in the center. Jin had seen these before. It was a scanner that could map a being's mental energy. "Please stand in the center of the ring, Cadet," Cadet said. Jin walked into the middle of the machine. He felt very exposed. Captain Raz stood nearby, his arms crossed, watching intently. From her bed, Mira was also watching, her face worried. The machine came to life with a low hum. A soft blue light passed over Jin's body from head to toe. A screen on the wall lit up. It usually showed a swirling, colorful pattern of light that represented a being's mind. Jin had seen Mira's scan once during a class. It was a beautiful, shifting pattern of gold and blue. His screen was black, completely black. Physician Kalik made a startled click with its beak. It tapped on a control panel. There must be an error. The sensor is not registering any psionic activity. Not even the basic life field. There is no error, Captain Raz said, his voice quiet but firm. Continue the scan. Go to the deepest level. The physician tapped more commands. The blue light from the ring grew brighter. The hum of the machine became louder. On the screen, the blackness remained. It was a perfect empty void. There were no colors. No shapes, no light. It was like looking into a night with no stars. In the silence of the medical bay, the meaning of that black screen settled over everyone. The other cadets who were waiting for their checks had turned to look. They saw the empty screen. They understood what it meant. The whisper started again. It's true, someone said. He really is a void. Mira was staring at the screen, her hand over her mouth again. But this time her look was not of shock, but of a deep, sudden sadness. She was looking at the proof of something Jin had tried to explain to her before. She was seeing his loneliness made visible. Physician Kalik turned to Captain Raz. This is unprecedented. I have never seen a living, sentient being with a reading of absolute 0. It is as if, from an empathic perspective, he is not here. He is a ghost, Raz nodded slowly. He looked from the black screen to Jin, who still stood in the center of the ring. That is what the beast saw, he said. It did not bow to strength. It did not bow to courage. It bowed to the one thing it could not understand. It bowed to the silence. He gestured for Jin to step out of the machine. The blue light faded and the hum stopped. Jin walked back to the captain, feeling strangely ashamed. The black screen had shown everyone what he was, or what he was not. Captain Raz looked at Jin, and for the first time his gaze was not one of stern judgment or cold curiosity. It was something else, something almost like respect. All my life, Raz said, I have believed that telepathy was the highest form of connection, that to share your thoughts and feelings directly was the ultimate proof of understanding. I was wrong. He turned to address the whole medical bay. The cadets were all listening. You all failed the trial because your minds are open books. The beast read your fear, your pride, your desperation. It saw your inner noise and it answered with its own. But Cadet Jin, his book is closed, permanently. The beast could not read a single page. It found a quiet so deep, so absolute, that it had no answer for it. In a universe of shouting minds, it finally found one that was truly silent. And in the face of that, all it could do was bow. He looked back at Jin. You did not pass the trial by being stronger than the beast, Cadet. You passed by being what you have always been, a human alone in the crowd. And that, it seems, is a power all its own. The news spread through the academy faster than a plasma surge. The human cadet Jin had not just passed the empathy gauntlet. He had done the impossible. The Xylosian beast had bowed to him. By the next morning, everyone knew. Jin felt the change the moment he left his room. The other cadets did not stare at him with pity or confusion anymore. Now they looked at him with a new kind of attention. It was not quite friendship. It was a mix of awe and caution. They moved out of his way in the halls. They stopped talking when he walked into a common room. He was no longer the primitive newcomer. He was the cadet who had silenced the beast. It was a lonely feeling. He found Mira in the refectory, sitting alone at a table. She was pushing her food around on her plate. She looked up as he approached. Her smile was warm, but her eyes still held that shadow of sadness he had seen in the medical bay. Can I sit? Jin asked. Of course, she said. She gestured to the seat across from her. How are you? The famous cadet. Jin sighed and sat down. I don't feel famous. I feel strange, like I'm a specimen under glass. Mira nodded. I can imagine. She was quiet for a moment. When I saw that screen, Jin, when I saw the blackness, I finally understood what you tried to tell me before. About being alone in your mind. She looked down at her plate. I felt sorry for you. It looks so empty. Jin thought about that. It isn't empty for me, he said slowly. It's just quiet. My thoughts are my own. My feelings are my own. I don't know any other way. To me, your mind must seem very noisy. Everyone shouting their feelings all the time. It must be hard to find peace. Mira looked surprised. She had never considered that. To her, a silent mind was a broken mind, a lonely mind. But Jin was saying his silence was his peace. That is a different way to see it, she admitted. When the beast growled at me, it was echoing my own fear. It was using my feelings against me. You had no feelings for it to use. It had nothing to grab onto. Just then, Captain Raz walked into the refectory. The room became quiet. He walked directly to their table. The other cadets watched, trying to listen without being obvious. Cadet Jin. Cadet Mira, Raz said, his voice its usual rumble. I have been reviewing the data from the trial. All of it. He looked at Jin. Your unique condition has forced me to reconsider the purpose of the empathy gauntlet. He pulled up a chair and sat with them. This was so unusual that a few cadets gasped. Instructors did not sit with cadets. The gauntlet was designed to find diplomats, Raz began. Beings who can control their own emotions so perfectly that they can approach a hostile force without provoking it. But it has a flaw. It only works on telepathic species. It finds those who can build the best mental walls. But you, Jin, you were born with a wall that cannot be crossed. You are the ultimate neutral party. Jin listened, not sure where this was going. The galactic community is vast, Raz continued, and we have many disputes. Trade disagreements. Border conflicts. Most are solved by telepathic mediators who can sense deception, who can feel the truth of a situation. But sometimes it fails. Sometimes the minds are too loud, the emotions too strong. The mediators get overwhelmed. They pick up on the anger and it clouds their judgment. He leaned forward. What if the best person to settle a loud argument is not the one who can shout the loudest or build the strongest wall, but the one who cannot hear the shouting at all? What if the best person to find the truth is the one who can only listen to the words that are spoken and see the actions that are taken without being swayed by the storm of feelings behind them? Mira's eyes widened as she understood. He would be immune, she said. He wouldn't be influenced by their anger or their lies. He would only have the facts. Exactly, Captain Raz said, looking at Jin. Your humanity is not a weakness, Cadet. It is a tool, a unique and powerful tool. While the rest of us are drowning in the noise of 1,000 feelings, you are standing on dry land, able to see clearly. The beast did not bow to nothing. It bowed to clarity. It bowed to a mind that was, for the first time in its long life, truly and completely honest. Because it has no other way to be. Jin felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For so long he had felt less than the others. He had felt broken. But Captain Raz was reframing his entire existence. His solitude was not a prison. It was a position, a unique point of view that no one else in the galaxy could have. So what happens now? Jin asked. Now, Captain Raz said, standing up. Now you graduate. And then, you will have a very special career path ahead of you. The galaxy has plenty of telepaths. What it needs, I think, is a man who can truly listen. He gave a short, sharp nod to both of them and walked away. The refectory remained quiet for a moment after he left. Then, the noise slowly returned. Mira looked at Jin, her earlier sadness replaced by a look of excitement. Do you understand what this means, Jin? You're not just a cadet anymore. You're a solution. Jin looked around the room. The cadets were still looking at him, but now he saw their gazes differently. They were not looking at a freak. They were looking at a pioneer. He was still alone in his mind. That would never change, but for the first time he did not feel lonely. He felt necessary. Graduation day arrived. The great hall of the academy was filled with beings of every shape and size. Proud families watched from galleries above. The air was filled with a sense of celebration and hope. The cadets stood in neat rows, their new uniforms crisp and clean. They were no longer cadets. They were graduates. Jin stood among them. He wore the same uniform as everyone else, a dark blue with silver insignia. But he felt different. The ceremony was a blur of speeches and awards. He listened as other cadets were recognized for their achievements in telepathic control, for their skills in empathic negotiation, for their high scores in mental disciplines. He was happy for them, but he assumed his own role would be a quiet one. He would graduate, and that was enough. Finally, Captain Raz stepped up to the podium. He was the head instructor, and he would give the final address. His yellow eyes scanned the crowd of graduates. You have all worked hard. His voice boomed through the hall. You have mastered skills that your ancestors could not dream of. You have learned to connect with minds across the vastness of space. This is a great achievement. He paused, letting his words sink in. But you have also learned a vital lesson this cycle. A lesson that was not in your textbooks. You learned that strength is not always what we think it is. Sometimes the greatest power is not in a shout, but in silence. All eyes in the hall turned to Jin. He felt his face grow warm, but he stood straight, looking forward. For centuries, Raz continued, we have believed that to understand another, we must feel what they feel. We must join our minds, but this has limits. In a room full of shouting, can anyone hear the truth? In a storm of emotion, can anyone see clearly? He stepped out from behind the podium and walked towards the graduates. He stopped in front of Jin. This cadet, Jin of Earth, comes from a species that lives in quiet solitude. They are born alone in their minds. They die alone in their minds. We thought this was a tragedy, a limitation. We were wrong. Raz placed a hand on Jin's shoulder. The gesture was firm and respectful. In his silence, he found a different kind of strength, the strength to be unmoved by the storms around him, the strength to listen only to words and to watch only actions. He is a mirror that does not reflect anger or fear. He reflects only fact. And in a galaxy that is often too loud for its own good, we have finally found someone who can truly hear. He turned back to the audience. Therefore, it is my honor to not only grant Cadet Jin his diploma, but to also announce his first official assignment. He will be assigned as a neutral observer to the Tarkellan-Plorvian border dispute. For 5 cycles, our best telepathic mediators have failed. They become overwhelmed by the sheer hatred between the two sides. They cannot separate the facts from the fury. Raz looked at Jin. Cadet Jin will go there. He will listen. He will not feel their hate. He will only see their actions and hear their words. And he will help them find a peace that we, in all our connected wisdom, could not. A quiet murmur of amazement went through the crowd. It was a huge responsibility for a new graduate. Jin felt a surge of purpose. This was it. This was the meaning of the beast's bow. He was not a diplomat who could join minds. He was an observer who could see them clearly. His humanity was his qualification. The ceremony ended. The new graduates mingled, saying their goodbyes. Many came to Jin to wish him well. The Tarkellan cadet who had been so proud gave him a stiff nod of respect. The Plorvian pulsed a warm, friendly pink. Mira found him. She was smiling. A neutral observer. I knew you were special, Jin, but this is incredible. It's because of you, Jin said. You were the one who helped the captain understand. You called it loneliness. Mira shook her head. I was wrong. It's not loneliness. It's independence. She hugged him quickly. Go and show them what a quiet mind can do. Later, as Jin packed his things in his room, there was a knock at the door. It was Captain Raz. Are you ready, Observer Jin? He asked. I think so, sir, Jin said. You will be the first of your kind, Raz said. There will be those who doubt you. They will call you a primitive, a blank. But you know the truth now, Jin nodded. Yes, sir, I do. The galaxy is a symphony of noise, Jin, Captain Raz said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. And for the first time, we have someone who can appreciate the spaces between the notes. Do not try to become like us. We need you to remain exactly as you are, a silent, steady rock in a noisy river. Jin picked up his bag. He took one last look at his small room. He was leaving the academy. He was going out into the vast, loud, emotional galaxy, and he was going there armed with only his quiet human mind. He was not afraid. He was the one thing no one else could be, himself. He followed Captain Raz out the door, ready to begin his work.